please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what your sort of relationship to leaders and transformational culture, anything like that is.
All right. So my name is Arcui Usoara. I'm the founder of Achilles, which is a global brand strategy consultancy. We mainly work with a lot of forward-thinking entrepreneurs who are truly impact-driven and growth-oriented and want to uplift their community of users. Now, I help them through brand strategy and strategic branding. And it's not just the fluff that most people talk about when it comes to brand strategy, but rather a lot more complex and honestly introspective aspects where we help them discover who they are as individuals, what are their core values, and how that can help them align with their other co-founders if there are any, and how they can use that to scale further in the right direction. So as a brand strategist, I help these individuals truly get the clarity about themselves as to what they want to create and how they can actually do that. So that's generally where I play my role. And I'm also a facilitator, a podcaster, a huge dog lover and dog rescuer, a mentor at institutes like Techstars, and also a published author and so many other things. But I'll try to keep this as short as I can. But yeah.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's it. The main thing I want to do is I want to either deal specifically with leaders or people who are
Yeah.
interacting with leaders so that I can
Yes.
understand them better and do my job better.
Yes.
So the first question is, I think, in some ways, the very most important question because the answer helps me expand my understanding. And that is, what question or questions do you think we should ask ourselves about transforming workplace culture and leadership?
How invested are you in being a leader? A lot of times people think being a leader is to manage people. No, that's the title for a manager. A lot of times you end up going and hiring HR to manage these people and be like, okay, so there's someone there to take care of these guys and everything. That's not what being a leader is. A leader is someone who, I say this a lot, a leader is someone who never demands anything, but they command. And not in a bad sense, but someone who is able to facilitate that authority. But to be able to do that, you need to be involved. You need to be able to have a relationship with these people. You need to be able to stay with them and be someone they can look up to, look for guidance, and can expect the right kind of leadership. And so if you're looking to expand into a team, like I don't even have a bunch of employees in my team. I work with a lot of freelancers. And anytime I run into two or three of them, I already tell them that, you know what, you should work with this person. I start forming those relationships for them. And they always know that there's going to be a great one because I know all of these people personally. I've invested my time with them. I've built that connection with them that helps me form those bonds. So when it comes to expanding into leadership, you need to ask yourself, are you willing to be a leader first? I think that's the most important thing. And then it goes into what kind of leader do you want to be? You want to be a leader based upon what you have experienced or what others say, or do you want to find your own form of leadership? I see a lot of people struggling to find their form of leadership, and that ends up ruining a lot of work culture or just the brand culture in the sense because a brand culture starts from the leaders, from the CEO, and that's what expands into other employees, other people. And that's the core of branding. It's not your identity, it's not the logos, messaging. It's who you are and how you're communicating that and cultivating that within people. Because that is further, recognized by whoever you hire as a designer or a copywriter. They pick up on these traits by seeing it throughout the entire organism. So yeah.
Excellent. I like that answer because it's sort of like, it's not who do you want to fake become to be a leader? First of all, do you want to be a leader at all? Are you willing to put in the work? Because it is going to be work.
Yes.
And then what kind of a leader do you want to be rather than let's find out what kind of a leader sells best and we'll do that. It's like, yeah, that's not really going to work because that's going to come off really super inauthentic if you do. Okay,
Absolutely.
great. Next question is, what are the most significant challenges you face in transforming workplace culture and leadership? I guess in this specific case, with respect to brand management and the kind of things you do.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge I always face is when there's no clear communication and standards. What I mean by that is I work with so many companies and they might have CPOs, CMOs, CFOs. They'll have a CEO, another co-founder, and board of directors who are more involved as well. And the biggest thing that comes is nobody's clear upon the vision. And so everybody's moving in their own direction. So the CPO is building something, the CMO is creating something, the CEO is trying to tell a story. And there's so many things happening, but nobody is in alignment. So if you actually want to create something, if you really want to scale a business, if you want to be better leaders to their teams, you need to first start by having clarity upon yourself. Because if all the people are in alignment, if all these guys communicate with each other, then they know exactly the steps they need to take for their internal teams and the people they're going to delegate to without fighting each other down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It reminds me of Jim Collins, because he talks a lot about that, right? It's like, if you don't have an agreed upon direction that's unambiguous for everyone, then it's going to be like herding cats. And like you said, you're going to wind up actually fighting against other people, when it's like, if you don't have a unified vision, that creates a whole bunch of problems. And if you do, it eliminates a whole bunch of problems.
Absolutely. I meet a lot of startup founders, and they think that a vision statement is just something they can slap on to impress investors. No, a vision statement doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to mean something that means something to you and to the people who work with you, so that they can work towards that. It might mean blabber to other people, but if it means something to you, if it speaks to you, then you have the direction. And so vision truly provides you the direction towards all the different missions you need to do to get where you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And that's, again, that channels that, and Reed Hastings in No Rules Rule.
I should really look into these books.
Right. I'll give you, I'm happy to give you a list of all the books I mentioned. And also one about the Ritz-Carlton, and it's called The New Gold Standard. And it's like, in both of those and a lot of really top organizations, it's like, here is what is known in the military as the commander's intent. And I'm not military, I just know it actually through business books. And it's sort of like, if we all know where we're going, we will give you standing permission to do X, Y, and Z to get there, and then just use your best judgment. Or even Disney. It was like, in Disney, they have the Heath brothers, another couple of my favorite authors, Chip and Dan Heath. And in one of their books, they just call it a generative analogy. Other people would call it identity. And it's just, anyone who's working at Disney is a cast member. So they should behave as a cast member. And a cast member wouldn't let garbage sit on the ground, even if you're Mickey or someone like that.
Yes.
Everybody takes full responsibility, and, the results are something good. Okay.
And to add to that a bit is that, if you want your team to be able to do that, you need to facilitate a good culture. You need to facilitate that they feel that belongingness. If your team doesn't feel that they belong, I run into so many founders that like, growth is just over hiring. If I want to make, if I want to become a billionaire, I just need to hire multiple people. And the reason these companies end up losing out on so many employees every few months and everything is because they're just overburdening their employees. They're not really looking out for them. There's no development for them. And they're just being used as peons to just get the work done.
Carbon-based profit units. Yes, I get that. That's, culture is foundational. It's like, why should I care? Why should I take care of you when your back is turned? If you've treated me badly, there's no real motivation for me to treat you well. Okay, so then the next one is, and it sounds like you've already touched on this in a way. It's like, could you describe a recent situation where you felt that a leader could have benefited from additional training or guidance in culture building, leadership, or both?
I think recently when I experienced this, where the leader could have really benefited from this, was one of my friends. While he's a great person and everything, he didn't invest in business as he should have, and his whole team quit on him 6 months during they were supposed to present a big project, because he was constantly overburdening them. He was constantly making sure that they stayed up late and everything. And I would always tell them that while you might be a great individual to know personally and everything, you're not a great leader. And his team quit on him. And the reason this happened is because he wouldn't care. He would follow the things he had gone through when he was doing a 9-to-5 job, where the toxic managers would be like, no, you need to stay on Saturday and Sunday. You need to get the work done and everything. And literally his team of I think 6-7 people, I guess, they all quit. They all quit slowly, one by one. They all quit. And 6 months before he had to submit a deadline, they were not responding. They were not there. And he didn't realize that there were deadlines coming as well. He thought the team is taking care of things, but he was not involved in any way. He was just the person who just be like, yeah, charm the client somehow, some or the other way, agree to the deal because he's making some sort of profit because he's underpaying these people and everything. And I told him that this is not the way to go, because if you want to make big bucks, how do you expect your team to work for you when you yourself won't pay them those big bucks? You can't you can't expect them to fill your jar if you won't empty it for them. And so his team quit. 6 months are there, and that's where, the projects are getting hectic. The requirements are increasing, and he's having to overhire people. He's having to find people who would even understand these things. And he didn't have a clear documentation process either. No one in the team, he didn't create any systems to make sure the team could work together. So even though people were getting work done, there was a lot of friction because, again, even internally, the copywriters were creating copy that wouldn't fit the website's layout. The website was created in a sense that didn't match in any sense the brand identity that was created. And so if you're not making an environment people can collaborate, talk to each other, then this is what will happen. It might not be as big as, your team quitting on you and everything, but things will fall apart slowly and surely. And you'll be left with either people who are just trying to profit off of you, or people who are just trying to find a way to leave you in any way they can, as quickly as they can, as quickly as they can get their situation sorted and everything, because they don't see any reason to be here anymore. Yeah.
Agreed. It's telling, right? Because it can be anyone, and especially if your examples of what leaders could be or should be, if you want to call it that, if you've had bad leaders and it didn't occur to you how much you hated working for them, then all you've got is just a really bad role model who is not going to help you, as you said, is not going to help you in any way succeed. So that's too bad, but that's the reality of it. Okay, next one is, what specific outcomes would you hope to achieve through training in leadership and culture building? So what we've been talking about, if you are that leader, if you're the person putting this together, being responsible for this, what specific outcomes would you be looking to achieve so that you knew you had the metrics, you basically had that vision or those concrete targets that you're going in the right direction?
So my biggest thing, so right now I have a team of 4 people. We work with a lot of freelancers, but I have a team of 4 people who are freelancers as well, but I call them my team because they constantly work with me. And they're going on a 4-month vacation from December to March. And that's what I consider a valuable metric. Not that we are just focused on work, because we hit our financial goals in March. We completed all our projects in September, and in October and November. So October was completing a few more projects, and November is spent getting clients for 2024. The way I do this is I break my goals down, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of how much I need to spend in terms of the people and how much they need to spend their time on these things. And also, what will they be doing after this? I don't want them to be like work, work, work and forgetting about the people they care about, because I was in a place like that once and I didn't want that. My family learned how to have fun without me being there because I was constantly working, and that was only priority for me. And so even though they wanted to spend time with me, they were reinforced in learning how to do things without me. I don't want that for anybody. So here's what I do. I see what is the goal I want to achieve. I see how many projects I'll need to take on and for how long. I try to see it in such a sense that I don't have to get too many projects, get too many clients, but rather work with the right people who can pay the price I generally like to charge. So my retainer starts at $10,000 a month for just consultation. And we try to take, for 2024, my goal is to get 15 clients who will pay me that on a yearly basis. We meet our financial goals very easily with that, with just 15 clients who we have to work with on a yearly basis. To do that, I have one person who's working on lead gen, and they are getting paid very well. I have one person who's working on setting up a lot more other operational systems and everything. They are getting paid very well. So their work is not to manage hundreds of clients every month who are shitty, who don't have a vision, but rather they are focused on making sure the people who are very driven have things that makes their process a lot more seamless. So it's not just about hitting the big goals, but it's about considering other things which helps pave that system a lot more seamlessly. And there are very few founders I run into who actually think about it in that manner. A lot of people just want to overhire, but also they end up charging less for their work, and then they pay a lot lesser for the people, and everybody's frustrated. Why would you want that? You're working late into the night. I see all of these companies, these MNCs and everything that have employees working like middle of the night and everything. I'm like, why? It literally gets on my nerves. I'm like, why do you think this is what you consider work culture, that your team is working together in the middle of the night? They should be with their families. They should be having fun. If they run into each other outside, it shouldn't be for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you said, that's not work culture, that's slavery. Now, the flip side of this, and again, I'm
Yeah.
going to refer back to Reed Hastings because he talks about it in that book, No Rules Rules.
Yeah.
And that was, they made it really simple. They says, look, yeah, we basically pay at the top end of the industry scale for whatever you do. And
Yeah.
if you get approached by a recruiter, we want you to go to the interview, tell them what they're offering you so that we can stay abreast. You're not at risk of losing your job. You're encouraged to go to that interview so it keeps them current, but also because the work culture is that positive, it means when something happens that people do need to work through the night on a rare occasion, not as a standard practice, they will be willing to, because they're not forgetting when you took care of them, and they'll actually be there to do the work, not to just appear to be doing it. You know, that statistic, what is it? I keep on thinking Bain and Company, but I know that's wrong. What's the really big consulting company?
Deloitte.
It's another one. Oh, I'm having technical
I'm very
problems.
bad. Same here.
Yeah, that's all
but
good. Just give me one moment here. I'm sorry
Sure.
to switch on you here, but I'm having technical problems with my Bluetooth, so I'm just gonna abandon them
All right.
for something else.
Yes. I would like to share something in the meantime while that gets set up. It is to what
Sure,
you
yeah,
said,
go
right?
ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Just I'll know what you said after. I'm deaf for a moment, so
All right,
please go
then
ahead.
No, then I'll just go ahead once you're ready and everything. Are you ready now?
Yeah, just give me a moment.
All right. I'll
Just gotta
start when you're
switch
ready.
them over. I can hear you sort of in the background. I just got to go to USB headset. Okay.
Yes, perfect. All right. All good now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. What I was saying is that, I'd like to share something. So whenever I come across freelancers and they are extremely underpricing themselves, I never look at it as an opportunity to be like, oh, I can get a lot more work done for cheap. I often end up telling them, increase your prices. I'll pay you what it needs to be based on market standards. Everybody who works with us, so the way I work mainly with freelancers and everything, because that's where we don't have employees. We work with a lot of freelancers. I have two approaches. One, I outsource you, and then on top of that, I charge my prices, which is my preferred model. Or I refer a client to you and we take commission from that, because as a business, I still need to survive. Every time we come across a lead and everything, we still want to have an advantage on that. But when we outsource them, we never ask them to reduce their prices. We ask them to charge what they would charge, and we add on top of that, because if you're working with me, I don't want you to feel demotivated. I don't want you to feel that you're getting underpaid for the work you're having to do. And I work with people who are great at what they do. I work with experts based upon my clients' requirements and based upon the things they love doing, because we often tell people to niche down, to specialize. And I don't do employees because I don't want to hire you for doing things you love, but also make you do things that you wouldn't love. So if you specialize in a particular type of design, I would like you to do just that, because you'd be excited, you'd be motivated. And so I want to facilitate that. And I pay them very well. And I'm really not, so my revenue is great, but my profits not be that great, because I'm not really concerned about that. As long as we make our cuts and everything and we get where we need to be, I'm happy how we got there. Because if by doing that, my team members are getting paid what they deserve, they are staying with me. They remember me. And it happened once where I was in a bad space where I needed to get some work done for internal work and everything. And I was not in a financial position at that time. And my team offered to do it for free. These people literally reached out, they saw a story, and I was like, I'm looking for some freelancers, even though it's not my general way and everything. I'm really on a tight budget right now. So I'm looking for people who would be willing to work on a different model. And these people are like, screw a different model. We'll work with you what you need. Just tell us, we'll get that done. And that's that loyalty you facilitate, you cultivate by creating that overall culture. That's what leadership is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like that. Bottom line is, when you treat people right, they're a whole lot more likely to treat you right. And
yes,
research shows on that particular point, money isn't actually what motivates people that much. Now, if you pay them too little, it will demotivate them.
Yes.
But paying them more and more, unless it's like factory work where it's basically pretty mindless, is about the only time you get a direct correlation between work and wages. So if you make twice as much, if you produce twice as much, you get twice as much money. Oftentimes when you take a creative, somebody who's doing less linear zombie type work, especially where they have, like you're talking about, some kind of expertise, it can actually invert it if other things of mastery, autonomy, and purpose aren't in place. If they don't feel, I really liked what you said about, oh, you want to keep them in their zone of genius. They're happy there, and that's the work they're good at. It's like, here, go do this because you suck at it so you can get better. It's like, yeah, well, is that really what you want to be putting out as your work product is? You want to develop your people. That's the mastery part. But if you can get people who are already great at something that they love, of course, they're going to be doing it better. And when something comes up, like you're talking about, they'll take care of you too, because you did it for them. Next one is, what do you think is the ideal duration for a comprehensive course on transforming workplace culture, leadership, or both?
I think an ideal duration should be initially 3 months, where you actually get to work with all these people, spend time with them, meet their schedules, and actually create these things, systems and guidance, and hold them accountable to it as well. And then once that is done, I think on a either bi-monthly or quarterly basis, you need to have a check-in consultation as well, where you see how things are going, where you check in when you see what are the challenges they're dealing and everything, as well as you see how you can create a safe space for them to be able to reach out to you on a normal basis instead of on a quarterly. So that's how I feel. Like, one, you should have a main session that goes on for 3 months. After that, there needs to be certain systems where people can still reach out to you and a company still pays for that. So maybe you can create a community growth approach or something like that. Or like on side by side, there should also be check-ins created, because it's hard to stay in the direction we always have if we are not being told that we are divergent. Because sometimes we think that, okay, we are going there, but instead we end up getting sidetracked by something or the other, and we don't realize it. And so sometimes we just need someone to help us, just reverse and then go forward in the right direction. So
yeah, no, I like that answer. Very clear, very concise. And, you knew where you wanted to go. I do want to ask you a question, because this was something that came up. It's a language thing. What do you mean by bi-monthly? Every 2 months or twice a month?
Twice a month.
Twice a month. Okay, great. I actually looked it up, because one of the other things they do is teach English. It's like, which one is true? It's like, well, technically both are, but neither are. And I thought it was really good advice. They just said, because of the language, better to either say twice a month or every 2 months to make it unambiguous. So I'm kind of getting in the habit of making sure I understand what people say if they say bi-monthly. Okay.
Absolutely.
Next one. It's important, because can you imagine talking about a contract, and two people have different, literally a factor of 4. The difference between every 2 months and every 2 weeks is a factor of 4. And suddenly they get charged a quarter what they expected, or receive a quarter of the pay they thought they would, or someone pays 4 times as much as they thought they were going to. That's a problem. So next one is, what factors would influence your decision about that ideal duration? So the question we just talked about. What things would sort of modulate or tweak that ideal duration from what you've already stated?
What do you mean exactly? What would make me want? What would be a reason for me to go for an option?
No, so you were talking about initially 3 months, and then bi-monthly every 2 weeks thereafter. Great, very clear, very concise. But what would cause you to change, to lower or raise those numbers? So you go, well, look, in this case, we need to go 4 months, 6 months. We're going to have to go more frequently or less frequently on the check-ins. What kind of things would make you sort of bend those numbers in a different direction?
Only 2 things. One, either we have brought in new people who are having trouble collaborating, because again, collaboration is a two-way street. It's not just the new ones that have to adjust to the already existing standards, but the people who are already existing, they still need to embrace the people who have newly joined us, and we need to be able to communicate with them. So there's a lot of friction that's happening, but I know that the people are talented and they share the same values. There's just a lot of challenges coming in the way in being able to communicate. That's where I would go for that. Or if we have changed our business model, like right now, we have changed our business model. So right now, we don't need that many people. Like for next year, it will all be just me working. And we'll have other people handling my stuff, but I probably won't be hiring other service providers and everything. But this is completely changing because it's just going to be me. So if there's a new change in business model, the services we provide, and how we'll be working with clients, this requires a new project management system. It requires a lot of communication in a different sense than what they used to. And so some things are less, some things are more, but if you're not used to it, it kind of affects you as well. So in that sense, when a business model is completely changed, or there are a lot of new hires and a lot of new people have joined, or a lot of old people have left, and we need people to be able to understand how these SOPs work, how these operation practices work, and everything.
Yeah, that's really cool. What I liked most about what you just said there is you talked about how it's a two-way street. It's not like, hey, new guy, new girl, become us, do what we tell you, and otherwise shut up and get in line, versus when somebody new comes on, it is a two-way thing to make, as you said, a collaboration. So I really like that. That's very high EQ of you to say. It's like respect. A lot of people wouldn't even think of it that way. It's like, well, we're here, you're coming in, you must change to all that we do, and you're just here to conform, which is never ideal. Okay, so the next one then is, which formats or delivery methods would you would be the most effective for the kind of training we've talked about?
Mostly, so my team is globally spread. Like everybody works in an asynchronous manner. So it would be easier to do it in a much more virtual sense, where we have events that take place and then they're documented, converted, and they're like interactive decks created so that people can engage with these things. And that works in the best way. As well as if we have add-on tools that can be created. So when I talk about leadership, I use these card decks that are created by my friend's company. And so they have a company that helps you communicate and learn from everybody else. So it's a card deck that's created. And so I use those decks when I'm training other leaders, or when I'm even trying to create a culture within my company with new people. Having tools like that can be tangible and placeable in any situation, or in some situations that plays a huge role, something we can look back to or reuse in different places and be like, okay, how can I use it now?
Great. So this next one, I'm struggling with the wording of this question. I literally have in red all caps, reword. So this is a somewhat reworded question. It's like, when it comes to investing in leadership and culture development, what criteria would determine the value of the training? Let me put this another way. What would make the training? Oh, you got it. Okay, great.
I mean, so I have ADHD and dyslexia, so the words are already moving in my head, so it makes sense. But here's what I think would make me think that, it's a worthy investment. If the leaders or anybody, like for me, everybody is a leader that's working with me because they have their own journey to grow. And if they're able to tap into more of their potential, if they have found their voice and confidence, but also their ability to express not just the tactical stuff. Everybody can be tactical. You can hire someone who's great at the software and everything, but in their leadership styles and their ability to connect, in their ability to stand for themselves, and their ability to think outside the box. So because I mainly run a branding and design, so I require people who can not just design well, but who can think differently, who can take two different objects and try to make sense of it, and who are not afraid of sharing their voice, who are not afraid of taking up challenges. Because that's what I do. Like, I don't go with easy clients. I don't deliver mediocrity. And I put a post about this a few years ago as well. If I wanted to deliver mediocrity, I would have stick to just downloading a course online. The reason I invest so much in myself, the reason I charge what I charge, is because I take this much time to make sure that you're not mediocre, to make sure that you are different. To create mediocrity, I could pay someone $10 and call this branding. But it takes time to make you innovative because you're innovative. You're complex and you require that complex solution as well. So if my team could do the same thing, and it has happened, where we sometimes bring in other strategists who specialize in a particular field, and we ask them to share their approaches, their way of thinking. It helps me see how they are actually implementing their thinking process, not their execution style, but their thinking process, because strategic thinking is not something that can be taught by a course, but that is something that is facilitated within people. It's not just determined by a framework. It is something that happens through people. So if I can have someone when they can help my team members think differently, be more innovative, that's what I know that this is a good investment because this pays off right away. This pays off right away because it takes time to cultivate and compound and everything, but it pays off right away because my team members are already thinking, how can they be different? How can they be better at what they do at how as themselves as individuals? And so they stop fighting and they start compounding by themselves. So that's what's important for me.
Nice. I really like that. So let me think here. Okay, great. Love that answer. You are good at this. And that's the thing. I'm the same way. I don't really believe in false flattery. That doesn't mean I don't seek to identify what somebody is great at, but if I don't mean it, I usually don't say it unless it's somebody's clearly delicate feelings. And the only cost that it would be is for me to tell a white lie to save somebody's feelings. Other than that, I usually don't do it, so that when people hear what I say, when I say what I say, people will understand that I actually mean it, because that's who I am. And what you talked about mediocrity, I use a word that's probably less popular and more harsh. It's just like, I don't want to do stuff that sucks. I don't want to be a bad teacher, even just for English. Like, the industry standard is so low that when I say, well, I'm not really going to spoon feed them the language, I want them to struggle with it. I will always help, but I'll help only and if they need it after the effort has come. That is, when they're stretching their own potential at that top edge. And then if they don't get it, there's no cost for them making a mistake or not being able to do it. But there is an insistence on my part when I'm teaching and I have full autonomy to just go, look, this is the way I do it. And I will even fire students or clients if it's like, if you want something much more half-assed, I'm just really not the right person to do it for you, because I want to be proud of what I've done. So I totally identify with what you're saying.
I love that because we like one of my students really loves this line. I told him once. I tell this to my clients a lot of times. I'm not going to create something that's shitty because it's not just going to be your work. It's going to go up on my website. And I don't want to spend my time creating something that I would be ashamed to put on my website.
Right.
So be sure that I'm going to deliver great things for you, but don't ask me to create stupid things for you. I'll create something that will help you and it'll be awesome, but I'm not going to create something because your competitor has the same thing.
Right. Yeah. If it's a template that you can do yourself in 5 minutes, why did you hire me?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so the next one is sort of a 3-parter, and it really depends how you answer it, whether it's 3 parts or 2 parts or 1 part. So this is, which types of support or mentorship outside the scheduled training would be most beneficial? So this is outside the training we've talked about, including the twice a month base touching, right? Course correction. Outside of that, 2 weeks is a long time for somebody who's struggling with somebody, or who, when you talk about, right, you go a little bit off of course, and now 2 weeks out, they're thousands of kilometers and many degrees off the target because they didn't have that in-between support. So what would you do for that?
So I kind of touched on this in the start, which is the community-led growth approach. Because what you get to do by being a community-led founder is that you create a safe space and you make it easier for people to talk. So if I'm hiring a leader and if I want them to be involved in everything, or if a leader, like if you're a leader and you're reaching out to a company and if you can create a community-led growth structure where for every company you create a small safe space. It can be via Slack, it can be via Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever it is, where these people are familiar with the platform. And this is created as a service where these guys can come and reach out to you. They can share their wins, not just where their problems, they can share their wins. They can be like, I achieved this. I need some guidance. Who do you think I should talk to? So if you can create this safe space, then it's much more daily. It's much more accounting. It's much more impactful because anytime they doubt themselves, anytime they feel that, am I wasting my time today? Is this task worth it and everything? They can reach out to someone. And even if you're not helping them right away, you can tell them, you know what, you need to have a conversation with this person in your team because they will tell you exactly how you're going and they'll be able to help you with that. And maybe you can facilitate that conversation via a quick group chat, like, hey, so this person would like to talk to you. And you being the mediator, you get to set the tone. You get to set that this is not someone complaining or this is not someone being incompetent. This is someone seeking guidance. And you
Right.
are here to guide them. So you get to facilitate that in a community-led growth approach.
Right. And I love that too. And this makes me think of Daniel Pink when I talked about mastery, autonomy, and purpose,
Yeah.
which comes from a book of his called Drive from years ago, but an excellent book. And he talked about, this was just a LinkedIn post he did, and it was that his LinkedIn post was ask for advice, not feedback, because as soon as it becomes advice, then they become a collaborator, and now they've invested in the success of it, rather than you did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, and this wrong. It's like, well, if you do this, this will help. And there's ego investment in it, but it reminds me, especially from other things you said, of Google and what they made famous, though they're not actually the researchers on it. It's from Amy Edmondson, psychological safety. That's the number one thing that makes the difference between teams full of geniuses. If they have psychological safety and can admit they don't know, or that they need help, exactly what you said, a safe space, that's what makes the difference between spectacular groups and smart, but possibly even dysfunctional groups. So the second point, okay. Sorry for interrupting. It's a bad thing. So the next part is, this is the part two. So ideally, and I think you've already answered this, and say so if you have, ideally, how often should that sort of support be available?
So if it's on a community approach and everything, if it is, it can be available on a weekly basis, where you have a space created for people to be able to reach out. And so the community can exist 24/7 and everything, but more of a weekly roundtable kind of situation, if that is available, where just a short check-in where everyone is just submitting, hey, this is how my week has been. This is what I have done. And it's more private and everything, where everyone is sending you a message, or even if it's a form and everything that's held anonymously, that still helps. Like anonymously, like it's not revealed to the founders, but you are aware of who is reaching out to you for what and everything. So yeah, because that helps you sometimes realize that if there's we need to talk about challenges with the current leadership style, they don't want to get, reveal that to the people and everything. So yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that was the first part. So it was what way to provide that support, the ideal form of it, and now the realistic form. That is, because ideally some people will just say 7/24 on demand, and I personally believe in that. But clearly people can't get back to you necessarily that as fast as that, but they can leave a message that you can get in the next few days. But now the next part is making that sustainable, because what's ideal is not necessarily sustainable or cost effective. So realistically, how often would what we've talked about be practical and sustainable, as differentiated from ideal in a fairy tale world where money and time were no object?
Yeah. Ideally, as I said, like I think weekly is a good check-in, because for some people, they can obviously text you anytime and everything, and you can get back to them in 48 hours or something like that. But weekly is enough for a lot of people, because again, if you're working with a lot of companies or a lot of people within a company, they themselves require the time to process these things. They themselves require the time to understand what is the challenge. And by asking you, sometimes that itself helps them put it in the right words to contradict themselves and understand that, wait, why is this challenging right now? If they put it in the right words, like, because they don't want to send you a message that doesn't make sense. So they would try to send you a detailed message. They would break it down. And even if they go through it overall and you reply to them, that's great. But even if they read the whole thing and you take about 2 days to reply, and you read that message, unless it's very critical, and there can always be an avenue where they can send emergency messages and everything. And that should be available as and when possible. And you should have a system where you're able to reply to them as quickly. But to the general stuff, which mostly is because generally in leadership or in companies, you never really run into complex stuff or extreme emergency things all the time. It does happen, but it's not a regular thing. So for those things, I think people themselves need to become self-independent, and that's added to the leadership development that is happening, where they're also able to ask for solutions, but when they're able to put it in words, they are themselves able to figure out exactly where they need help. And maybe they take the steps themselves to be like, you know what, I need help here. I need to ask this person. Because by putting it in words, you're like, okay, I don't know this thing, but I think I know who might be able to help me with this thing. And if it's you, then that's great. And they can reply back like, oh, let's say you're the leader and everything. You're like, hey, Tim, I need some help with this thing. Can you please get back to me quickly? And, they can send a follow-up message and everything. And then that can be taken to you. But yeah.
Right. I like that. Quite a long time ago, I put up some content to that. It was like, ask yourself for advice. And
Yeah.
shortly after that, I listened to a book that said exactly the same thing, that done right, you can sort of done right, you can give yourself basically one and a
Mm,
half opinions. Just even
yes.
putting it down, saying, if my best friend asked me this question,
Yeah.
if my closest colleague asked me this question, what advice would I give them? And as you
Yeah.
said, even articulating it allows you to be reflect on it, and to use the word that I'm really fond of, was
Yeah.
scientifically and not really metaphysically, but it's oftentimes mistaken as that. It's just
Yeah.
mindfulness. It's a huge part of, doing things well, self leadership as well
Yeah.
as others leadership. Okay, next one. That is, let's see if my rewording on this is better or not. How do you envision the course, that is what
Yeah.
we've been talking about so far,
Yeah.
addressing specific cultural or leadership challenges within an organization?
Um, can you just repeat that again?
Yes, that's why I need to reword the damn thing. So this is, again, I think you've already answered it, and I have no way of anticipating that. I just want
Yeah.
to cover my bases. So it's like, how do you imagine
Yeah.
the kind of course that you've described, the kind of
Yeah.
courses you've done, helping address specific cultural or leadership challenges in an organization?
I think the best way that has happened, and this kind of comes up in brand strategy as well, is by investing proper amount of time on the people and then as an organism,
Mhm.
because these people make up this organism. When it comes to the C-suite and executive team, it's these 5, 6 people, they come together, they share an aligned purpose and aligned vision. And that alignment is what builds this organism. It's these people coming and sharing that, and that's what builds this thing. So when there is enough facilitation done of these people to first discover themselves, if they are in the right space, why are they here? What is that they want to achieve? What is it that they want to leave behind as a legacy with this company and everything? And when that is communicated, you don't just help them understand and discover what is it that they want to do, or what is it that they can do over here in the best way to achieve this common goal, but you also understand with the other with the employees and everything, where do they need help? What are their challenges? What is coming out over here? Or you sometimes even end up realizing, and this happened with us, where the CEO quit his company after a session with us, after this whole sessions with us and everything on brand strategy, because he realized that that is not his purpose anymore, to be a CEO that is brought in every few years for different companies to help them reach from 7 to 8 figures and everything. He rather wanted to do something else. So when you spend enough time, you help discover that, because if you're doing things you're not passionate about, you might think this is purposeful, but you're slowly losing that out. You get frustrated easily, you get
Mhm.
detached easily, your commitment to that is very little. Like I am always like, I'll tell you honestly, like I thought this was just a meet and greet call that we're coming on and everything. And but I'm always interested to share my value. I never hold that back. So when it started, I was like, all right, let's just go with it. And have been like in the zone and everything. And that's the thing. But when you're doing things you're not passionate about, when you're doing things you're not interested in, and sometimes I have to talk to clients and I know that I'm not going to be working with them. So I just have a conversation of 15 minutes to let them know that I don't want to work with you and everything for so and so reasons. It's because I'm not excited to get on that call. It's because this thing doesn't fulfill me anymore. So having these, if you can facilitate a great introspection and then allow it to be positioned externally, that's where you can better understand what you can do, what are the actions you can take, and how it can be of benefit as well.
And this actually sort of goes into what we were talking about before, the engagement. I remember now, it was McKinsey and Company who have
Oh yeah,
famously talked about the research that
yeah,
80% of change management efforts fail. And
yeah,
it's oftentimes, though maybe not always, because of lack of leadership buy-in. It's
yeah,
like, well, yeah, this is just another flavor of the month. Well, if 80%
exactly.
of it fails and you haven't really supported it, you just want somebody else to do it. Some other interviews I've done, they were saying things like, if you want me to also take over the leadership, that is be you, so you don't have to be in the room, it's
Yeah,
either going to cost a whole lot more, or I'm going to fire you as a potential client,
yeah,
because I'm not going to do your job. If you're not involved in this, it's going to fail, and it's going to reflect bad on me, and it's going to reflect bad even on just the whole idea of change management. So let's
yes,
not do it until you are ready. Like you said at the very first, how serious are you about being, what are you willing to put into this as a leader? And
yes,
if you're not, then it's a hard pass. Thank you for your time. So love that. Okay.
Yes. I
Next
really
one.
like that. The thing you said about change management, because yeah, a lot of times change management fails because if you're not willing to put in the change and you expect change to occur, then it doesn't work. And that's why leaders need to be involved. Leaders need to put in not just their 2 cents, but they need to be involved in it. They need to make sure that this is important. They need to understand the reasons behind it. Or else you're not going to make any change. You're just wasting money on consultants or marketing heads, and nothing is happening. Nothing is changing.
Yeah, it's just hand waving. So the next one then, considering the potential impact on your organization or those of your clients, what pricing model, whether that's one time, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, yearly, subscription, whatever, would you find most appealing for the training that we've been talking about?
Subscription works best. I think initially there needs to be a fixed fees and then it should be followed by a subscription model. Because the initial thing when it comes to leadership development or any sort of like, because brand strategy goes into a similar model like you in terms of leadership development or learning development, we're literally breaking this everything down. We're restructuring things. We're going very deep. So that initial stuff needs to be a fixed cost, and that should be followed by a subscription model where people can subscribe to you on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, or a yearly basis. And they can have you so that once you have laid the foundation, then you're able to make sure that other people are falling into that. They're making sure they are aligned with it. Because then it expands into so much more than just leadership. Then it expands into culture. You can make sure that the people you hire are making the right culture for these people that already exist. They're not toxic leaders or something that are getting hired to manage people who are really motivated, who are going to lose out on that because someone came with a Harvard graduated degree but doesn't care about these people at all.
Yeah, that matters. I think it's really great that one of the companies I'm working with now, or in particular, I'm employed with, just as for doing for the purpose of maintaining my visa here in Japan, I needed to have a significant amount of at least enough income to justify that to stay, because I've been here a long time. And when the guy before he hired me, he says, "Look, I understand I'm going to lose you in probably a year to 18 months." Because I see what you're doing on LinkedIn. I see what you're doing as a consultant. And he didn't go, "Well, because of that, I'm not going to hire you." He says, "Because of what I see and I like what I see, you can help me succeed. And I'm also going to help you succeed, knowing that you're out the door in 12 to 18 months, but we're going to have this ongoing valuable relationship, which will make us both win." That's so exceptional. It's the only company I've ever worked for who's spoken like that to me. It was like, you actually know what you're talking about. You are actually the kind of person I've dreamed a unicorn job, pretty much, a unicorn leader. So here's the next one. And this is sort of more, it's sort of selfish, but not. It's also, by the way, you can't say Kara Jean Wilson, because she's who referred you, and you can't say your sister because I've already interviewed her. Who do you know who could benefit from or be willing to be interviewed by me on these topics?
I think I know two people with whom you'd be able to brainstorm, like how we had a conversation just now where you'd have great conversations, and who'd also be able to connect you with a couple of other people, if not directly by themselves. One of them is Anx Patel. He's a great brand strategist, someone I often work with, and we both brainstorm with each other as well. And the other one is Haley Dennis, who's actually a client of mine, who is all about making sure you have your authentic leadership in the corporate culture, mainly for women of color. And so she has written a book on it, which I helped design. We have helped her create her community-led growth approach and so much more. And so I think you both would have a lot of similar ideas.
Nice. I really appreciate that. So we've only got 2 left. The last one has to be at the last for a reason you'll discover soon. So the next one is, who do you know who is looking for guests about these topics for their podcast or summit? That is, flipping the script, like you were my guest today. Who do you know who would be looking to have me as a guest about the kind of things I speak about?
So here's what I can do. I don't know anyone right now because I'm done for I did like around 120 talks this year, like podcast events and everything, and I'm exhausted.
Take care of yourself. You need that time off too.
Yes. But this is a link that I've shared over here, which will give you access to a premium community where people just like us who are really all about change and everything else look for guests or are looking to be guests and everything. So that is a great space. I think it's a paid community. I have access to it because I helped the founder with some stuff a while ago. So I have access to it. But that's where you can find a lot of people who would be blown away with the questions you have asked or the insights you have to provide.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And very important. And I think you're exactly the kind of person I love to interview. And this is why I'm not looking for ego validation. I really do want the same kind of thing you do. That is, I know what I know I'm never finished. That sort of masterpiece in progress all the time. How could I make this interview better?
How can you make this interview better? I think right now the model is awesome. It's very conversational and it leads to stuff and everything. What I would suggest in terms of making it better would be the aftermath of it, where you get to create a space and you have all these other people together where they can share their journeys, where they can share their tips and everything, so that you're not just building an interview, but you're building resources from these interviews. You're building tools that are made from these experts. And so they're adding to it. They're not just part of a podcast, but they're part of a platform that is enabling so much more.
Okay, so let me get that clear. You're talking about basically building a community for interviewees and a platform, yeah?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, a community, because then what will happen is you'll launch my episode and everyone else will hear that, or I'll put a message about me in the community and everyone else will align. Someone will be like, I really like that. Let me share my things. You can ask them more questions. You can ask them more challenges. You can ask them things that they would like to create. You can build tools together. You can act as a venture studio where all of these people come together and create something as part of the podcast. So yeah.
Wow, I love that. You just gave me a whole bunch of work that I don't really have the time or bandwidth to do yet, but I think that is real gold. So you brought a lot of awesome value, how people can get a hold of you, your website and anything else that's sort of the main channels of connection you want to make with people, so that they can get a hold of you when they go, oh, this guy has great stuff. I want to work with them. They know how to do that.
Yeah. So for me, it's just two things. One is my LinkedIn, where you can easily connect with me. And as I said, like my aim for next year is just focusing on fractional consultation. So I'm joining companies as a fractional chief brand officer, where they can retain my services on a subscription model instead of paying me like $300,000 in a bar and everything. They can hire me for as little as $10,000 on a monthly basis for a quarter or a year. And so that's my main links. I'll share those two with you as and when you require. And if you can send me your email, I can send you my image without messing up the quality of the image and everything.
I'll let you go. Thank you so much. It was awesome. And thank you for your understanding on my tardiness.
That's all. As I said, been there as well. What would be amazing is if you can send me the recording of this as well. What I do is whenever I come on podcast, I use the clips of myself talking and everything as multiple short pieces of content. And then I tag the podcast host as well, but then I use it for my content because, again, I'm speaking about brand strategy and leadership and everything, the things I normally talk about. If you can send me the recording, that would be great.
I certainly will.
Yeah, wonderful.
I'll probably send you do you want just the raw and edited? Because I can do that.
The raw and edited. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'll do, because you want your own editors to chop it up. Okay.
Yes.
And that's better because they're better than I am. I just have to do it myself at this level. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. It was a delight, and I look forward to us having a long-term relationship and brainstorming. Take care.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
You do. Take care. And let me know if you need help with anything in terms of scaling this platform or anything else as well. Feel free to reach out.
I will. It's on my list. It's not there yet, but I'm impressed with what you said, and that matters to me. I need to hear what somebody's on the fly opinion is, and that's why I do this as organically as I do. It's like, if it has to all be rehearsed, then that means they probably don't know what they're doing. You ask me a question about neuroscience, I can answer it, or I can just say I can't answer it, and here's why, but I'll check. Here's my hypothesis. If you're an expert, you shouldn't need a script. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.